I feel like I'm living in a crazy world here in New York, and it's true in a lot of places across the country now. There's some consensus that has formed around certain issues that we're told are rooted in the science and the facts, and it's just not true, just not the case. And to some of you, maybe, although I don't think many of you, I might have sounded a bit like a mask truther recently. Like, masks don't work. They work in certain contexts for certain things and at a certain level. That is not the same thing as saying it is worth the hassle, the annoyance, the imposition of masking all places, all times outside your own home, right? That's not the same thing. And we know this because until now, and I mean until the last few weeks, nobody thought that in the midst of a pandemic, you would have everybody going around walking, wearing masks in this country. In other countries, they've been doing it. And guess what? They still have outbreaks of the disease. But in case you think that I'm just coming up with this and oh, well, you know, Buck, what have you? All I do is read all day long, basically. I read all day long. Producer Mark has to like text me to remind me that, you know, I got to get up and actually do a show. And then I just keep reading and trying to do more research. So I'm fortunate in that I can just deep dive into things every day, however I want, whenever I want, and bring you the best information I can on everything. And a lot of the people that say, science, follow the science, not only do they not know science, they don't read. They don't know anything. But they just like to talk about the science. I do read a lot. I'm not a scientist. And one thing that I've noticed is that if you look for science on the issue of masks and the benefits of masking, you find very quickly that there really isn't a scientific consensus out there on the civilian population wearing masks as a means of preventing the transmission of an upper respiratory virus. And here we have, for example, a video put out, what was this, in February? This is now making the rounds. A video put out by the World Health Organization. So this was if there is such a thing as a global medical consensus, which there really isn't, but if there was such a thing, one would think that the WHO would be representative of that consensus. And here's what they have as their directive for the public on the wearing of masks. Play clip 3.
Medical masks like this one cannot protect against the new coronavirus when used alone. When you wear them, you must combine with hand hygiene and other preventive measures. WHO only recommends the use of masks in specific cases. If you have cough, fever, and difficulty breathing, you should wear a mask and seek medical care. If you do not have these symptoms, you do not have to wear masks, because there is no evidence that they protect people who are not sick. However, if you are healthy, but you are taking care of a person who may be infected with the new coronavirus, then you should wear a mask whenever you are in the same room with that person.
Did you catch that? This is a public service, public safety announcement from the World Health Organization during the coronavirus pandemic this year that says, I mean, if you're healthy, wearing a mask is like not something you should do. What has changed between then and now? What study have we seen? What has been shown to us that all of a sudden shifts the scientific consensus? The answer is nothing. The answer is that masks have just become an emotional crutch for people who are terrified all the time about going outside and facing the coronavirus, even though, unless you're in a high-risk category, this is not something that it is reasonable to be afraid of. And I understand some people are afraid of things in an unreasonable fashion. Some people, even at a clinical level, there's agoraphobia and there's arachnophobia and there's all these different, trichodecaphobia is fear of the number 13. Is that right? I think I got that one. I don't know why that one stuck in my brain. But there's all kinds of phobias, right? Fear, irrational fear of something. People have developed coronaphobia, and they should not allow that to emotionally and psychologically cripple them and also be the rationalization in their mind for states to do things that are violating their rights, that are overreach by the authorities. We have far too easily and far too quickly succumbed to this, and I do find it very troubling. And that's the most polite way I can say it. There are other things that I would want to say about it, but I want to be very clear when I tell you when I say that I have skepticism about required masking in the lobby of my own apartment building, or in the gym where I want to work out, or outdoors in Central Park here in New York City. I'm pointing out that the science does not support these things. And in fact, the CDC, up until now, when all of a sudden the politics are driving this, would have said, yeah, we're not really sure. If you're the reason that people in some of the healthcare settings are wearing masks is that there's such a higher probability that they'll be exposed to a high viral load from a person, and maybe in such close direct contact that their spit or the droplets from their mouth will be in physical contact with them, that it's worth the imposition for medical people that are doctors and nurses to wear a mask. But for the rest of us, this is it's a political statement, and it's a psychological and it's emotional crutch for people. If you walk through droplets in the air, remember these are micro droplets, and you are breathing in air, the mask is not stopping the virus from. Yeah, you're not stopping it from being exposed to it. Yo, you know what I mean? Did I say yo? I don't know. Sorry, yo. I don't know where that came from, but what's up, yo? But yes, you're not, and also people keep forgetting viruses can enter through your eyes. It's actually it's a weak spot in the immune system. It's a place where you can get and that's why, people keep talking about touching your mouth. You touch your eye with virus, and it's a very easy way for it to get into your bloodstream. So, the science, I'm looking at the science. All these idiots, why aren't you wearing a mask? It's not that big a deal. Cuomo, wear a mask, because if you don't wear a mask, you're literally a mass murderer because you're killing a lot of people. Why should you not kill people? Because killing people this is what the governor of New York said. The guy's a moron. Some people figure out, though, this is all crap. This was great. This is great. You had this guy in Montgomery County, Maryland. It's a pretty fancy county, I think, if memory serves. And he is announcing the new dumbass restrictions you have for this county for the reopening. And turns out some people don't really want to hear about this nonsense. Play clip 7.
Childcare opens, as the governor described. It's open for dependents of essential employees and phase 1 reopening employees. And there are limits on the number of people who can be in the child care. Again, these are Governor Hogan's recommendations. Personal services, hair salons and barbershops open for hair only. No haircuts, no manicures, none of the, no pedicures. Houses of worship open. No.
I think it's great. People are like, what? You can't get a haircut, but you can get hair color? Like, what are these arbitrary distinctions that these just abject morons in charge are making? What are they talking about? If you're in a place, you're in the place. Let people get the services they want in the place. This is not based in science. This is now just all fear and control. It's all crap. I have been right about this. You know it. I've been right about this for months now. All these people are telling you, oh, wear a mask or you hate everybody, you're being reckless. They don't know what they're talking about. They don't read the studies. They don't know. And now that we're reopening, you can reopen, but, if you reopen a restaurant, you can order a ham sandwich, but not roast beef. What does that have to do with COVID-19? Shut up, peasant. Do as we tell you, or else we'll fine you. Morons are in charge, folks. Welcome to America. All right, back by Team Buck, popular demand. We have Tiana Lowe in the house. She is a commentary writer at the Washington Examiner and a contributor to Pluto TV's The First, channel 248 on your Pluto TV app. She joins now. Tiana, tell me, how is life down in quarantine in D.C.? Last time I was there, it was even more of a ghost town than New York was.
Yeah, I mean, today we finally begin our phase 1 of reopening, which is shockingly a lot less exciting than it sounds, because the mayor of DC, there have been all these cries from restaurant owners and bar owners just saying, DC is a physically small city. Shut down some of the streets and let us go. Let restaurants put dining seats and dining tables in the streets. Make them walking streets. But DC has been really slow to act. So when you think about small city, small physical restaurants, the number of them that can actually reopen and remain profitability, it's really small. If you only have a patio that can fit 6 tables that are all socially distanced, that's not enough to turn a profit if you're going to reopen. So, I mean, this is a cause for celebration, but quite frankly, the city should be bending over backwards trying to approve more liquor permits, approve more dining permits, make it so as many things can open up as possible. I mean, if you want to go get your nails done or get a haircut, you're better off just crossing the river and heading to Maryland or heading to Virginia.
And I got to ask, do you have other really stupid rules like we do here in New York City when it comes to de Blasio, our mayor here now, has said one person at a time in the elevator. And I'm like, they're coming up with rules that no one is going to follow. Like only people that are terrified of this whole thing, which they shouldn't be. The stats are in, the numbers. If you're under 50, your risk from this is very, very, very low. Do you guys have any dumb stuff like that going on?
Yeah, no, it's not even just that people won't follow them. It's that it won't do anything to decrease the transmission of the coronavirus. One of the things that DC is doing now, so you can go into a grocery store with a mask and socially distance and buy your groceries, but you can't go to a Nordstrom to buy new jeans. You can't go to a Sephora to buy new makeup. These are all people who need to work, and they need people physically in their stores in order to gain income. It's just, restaurants can open up outside, but bars can't. If bars don't serve 3 individually cooked meals, bars can't. A new rule from the mayor. Our speed limit has been decreased to 20 miles an hour because that will absolutely inhibit the spread of the coronavirus. It makes no sense, and it's honestly just petty authoritarianism run rampant.
That's what we're seeing here, too. And I don't know what it's going to take for people to, on the one hand, we have, based on Minneapolis, cities across the country that have nothing, that are obviously not Minneapolis, that are also seeing protests and some violence in the streets, cops having to wrestle people to the ground, lots of stuff going on here. I'm a little bit in shock about how much these cities in these blue enclaves like New York have been willing to tolerate when we are ruled by idiots in New York. I mean, de Blasio and Cuomo's nursing home policy, it's like he came up with the fastest way to infect the most at-risk people possible, and everyone still listens to them. I don't know what's going on.
I mean, this whole thing has been a blacklight over just who are the worst sycophants in the media. The fact that Cuomo has been completely lionized. Studies now show that if New York had shut down about a week earlier, they could have prevented about 50% of all coronavirus deaths. When you look back, so now people are saying the subway was probably the #1 source of coronavirus transmission in New York. And even though de Blasio was trying to persecute people for going outside, Cuomo never decided to shut down the subway. And ultimately, the authority of the MTA does rest with the state, not with the city. It is political malpractice that Cuomo has been held up as this hero. And especially if you want to look at good Democrats that have handled this crisis, California has a ton of them. California does not have the same in crazy death rate, crazy caseload rate. And yeah, on the one hand, most of California is more spread out than New York, but San Francisco is the second densest city in the country, and they've had 36 coronavirus deaths. Why? Because they have a mayor with a couple of brain cells to actually rub together instead of dummy Bill de Blasio.
We're speaking to Tiana Lowe, commentary writer for the Washington Examiner, and also a contributor to The First on Pluto TV. Tiana, let's just move to the political scene for a second. And I thought this poll was really interesting. Joe Biden, this is according to Newsweek, Joe Biden a week ago in the same Reuters Ipsos poll was up 9 points. And now it turns out that Joe Biden, as of this week, is only up 6 points. What do you think is heading in the president's favor right now? And also, how concerned should we be that a guy who, like, almost every day gives us a soundbite that is fantastic for radio because it's so hilarious and bizarre and it's like Mr. Magoo run amok, how is he ahead of Trump in any of these battleground polls and national level polls?
So right now, the goal of this election is to keep, for Trump, it's to keep this election from being a referendum on Trump. That is one of the reasons why Trump did win in 2016, because it wound up becoming a referendum on Hillary and on the Obama era, and that benefited Trump. Right now, Trump is the leader, so he's in the spotlight. You know, you are seeing his approval rating go down, but because negative partisanship is so strong, it has not really affected his presidential polling, and that's fundamentally what matters. A big factor I think the media doesn't want to address, most voters polled, there have only been a handful of polls about this, so we can't say it for a fact, but most voters polled believe the Tara Reade allegation. And even if it's only a minority of those who believe her, who will change their votes as a result, that's not insignificant. So we know that Biden is polling better with the college-educated class than Hillary Clinton. He's doing better with older voters by a lot, which should scare the Trump team. But he is not doing well with young Black voters. And we already know the Black electorate, they're the bellwether of how well Democrats do. So even though, yes, it was older Black voters who saved him and saved his candidacy in South Carolina and crucially afterward, but it's more suburbanite moms who are turning out for Biden than young Black voters who are also very important in the politically active community. I mean, the best thing that Trump is going for him is negative partisanship. Even if you hate the tweets, even if you hate all of it, right now we're looking at what could be an immediate recovery, what could be a 3-year-long recovery with unemployment persisting into the double digits well into next year. Trump needs to sell. Do you really want to hand the reins back over to the guy who was second in command during the longest economic recovery since World War II?
Fair point. Tiana Lowe, everybody, of the Washington Examiner and contributor here at The First. Tiana, thanks so much for joining. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, Buck.
Hey, Team Buck, it's time for roll call.
Roll call, everybody. All right, let's get to it, shall we? Facebook.com/Buck Sexton, Team Buck at iHeartMedia.com. And we do have a fun Team Buck announcement to make, but I can't make it yet, or else producer Mark will put me in the penalty box. But there's something cool on the horizon. All right, right, Mark? We can say something cool is coming.
We always have cool things coming.
That's true, but this one's especially cool. So this is kind of exciting. So let's see what we have here. We got first up in the mix. Well, actually, no, before we go, what are producer Mark and Mrs. Mark doing this weekend? Anything fun?
How can we do anything fun? We're in the New York area.
That's a good point. Well, aren't there? Isn't the Jersey Shore open?
Do you know how far the Jersey Shore is from, like, northern New Jersey?
It's like
a couple hour drive.
It's like an hour drive.
Yeah.
Come on, it's not that bad.
Then I have to find parking, and they might. It's a whole thing.
Yeah,
50% beach capacity too.
What about, when you're on the Amtrak train, for example, or you're on I-95 and you start going through northern New Jersey? There's all those. The Meadowlands, for example, are any of those like swimming holes?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead and go swimming in the swamp, Buck.
I'm just saying, you probably could.
There's a reason people say that New Jersey smells. That is the reason.
Yeah, I guess some of those chemical facilities, the runoff into those marsh areas might not be the most healthful, I would say that's possible.
It's not. It's a lot of swampland, and then you see MetLife Stadium.
Good point. Rich, first up. It was great listening to your account of your meeting with our president on the radio. I really enjoy your show. I have to say the voice yesterday almost did take me back to your Elizabeth Warren impersonation. I'm originally a South Jersey river rat, growing up in Beverly on the river. Unfortunately, all my friends from childhood are Lib Dems and denounce our president at every turn. I lived in the great state of Oklahoma, where all my friends for the last 30 years support our president. Oh, I guess he lives, not lived. Thank you for meeting with our president, the greatest president of my life, now spanning 65 years. Keep keeping America great by keeping us informed and entertained. Rich, thank you very much for your kind and supportive note. We really do appreciate it here in the hut. And I got to get out to Oklahoma. I've never been to Oklahoma. Never been. I got places I got to go. I have places to go, people to see, things to do. Hopefully we can start doing that again when the country opens up a bit. Andy, greetings from the MSP metro area. I'm appalled and deeply saddened by the last few days. I'm not a lifelong Minnesotan. As a result, it was initially quite disarming how nice people are here. It's a common practice, for example, during the winter, for people to leave their cars running, keys in the ignition, while they run into stores. There's a trust and sense of community that I feel here that I haven't felt in the multiple areas I've lived. People put up with the horrible weather and the cold because they love being here and raising their families here. I ask your listeners to please pray for our city and the broader metro area. Shields high. Andy, absolutely prayers up for Minneapolis in Minnesota, and we are thinking about you all, and you know, I know that there are people listening right now who are listening on KTLK in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and our thoughts and prayers go out to all of you. And this will pass. This will be okay in the end. I mean, you'll be okay in the end. I'm just sorry what's going on with your city, because it's distressing. Over 170 businesses either looted or attacked or destroyed, burned down. That's a lot. That's a lot of places. It feels like a whole neighborhood. Brian, Buck, I have a real mask virtue signaling winner for you. I live in New Hampshire, where we do not have helmet laws for motorcycles. So the other day, my wife and I were out for a drive, and I saw a real winner on a sport bike. Shorts, sneakers, T-shirt, no helmet, but he had a surgical mask on. Because you know that going 70 miles per hour on the highway is a real at-risk situation for COVID. I do like that a lot, I've got to say. I mean, yeah, if you're going to be going 80 on a Harley and you're not wearing a helmet, but you're going to wear a surgical mask, you know you're a liberal at that point. You know you're a lib at that stage. What do you think, Producer Mark?
Yeah, I mean, just going on a motorbike or a Harley or anything like that with that helmet, how dumb can you be?
Yeah, I would not do that. And in fact, I've never been on a motorcycle. So
I haven't either.
That. Yeah, never been on one.
I don't have the urge to.
I've been on one of those sort of, you have like a little kick start thing, dirt bike in the country. So I guess that's but I've never been on an actual road, you know, on a motorcycle. So I'm sure a lot of the audience.
We rode on our honeymoon in Jamaica. We rode ATVs. That was incredibly fun. Off-roading.
ATVs are great. That's a lot of fun. Yeah, there's a place here where you could rent jet skis in New York City and go around the Hudson River. I'd like to look into that actually, because I've another fun fact about Buck. I've never been jet skiing.
Would you not be worried about accidentally falling into the Hudson?
The Hudson's fine.
Oh, come on.
It's fine.
The amount of water, things that are in that.
Same water that goes in the Meadowlands, where I love to go swimming, right by Giant Stadium and the big chemical factories. Come on.
I don't want to say what's probably floating in the Hudson, Buck, but I think you and I can use our imaginations.
It's probably true. Some people sleeping with the fishes. That's a thing that happens there sometimes. Glenn, hey Buck, I will say that I do keep Bing on my phone. Oh, we have a Bing user. The only reason I do is to see the websites that Google has censored from my search. When the story about Joe Biden talking about getting the Ukrainian AG fires came out, AG fired, not fires, A Google search gave me nothing pertinent, but Bing brought it right up. You should try it sometime. Glenn, I don't know if I'm going to switch over to Bing. Look, Google's another lib company. Facebook is a lib company. Although, actually, I like, we have that thing? Didn't Mark? Yep. Zuckerberg. I like what he said. Can we play clip 15? This is what he said about Facebook.
But I think we've been pretty clear on what I think the right approach is, which is that I don't think that Facebook or internet platforms in general should be arbiters of truth. I think that's a kind of a dangerous line to get down to in terms of deciding what is true and what isn't.
Here he is, Zuck. Well, I guess there's Jeff Zucker and then there's Zuckerberg. I feel like Zuckerberg should be the guy who gets called. He's Zuck. He's the one. He's a much bigger deal than Jeff Zucker. Jeff Zucker's a glorified NBC producer who happens to now run CNN. It's really insane. Where were we on? Shouldn't be the arbiter of truth. He's absolutely correct. So Facebook is a little better on this than Twitter. But the libs love to dominate Twitter, and they think that this is necessary for them. So we got to keep that in mind. All right, next up, we have Richard Buck. We got another Richard here. Wanted to give you a resistance story. Last year, I got a free couch from a friend. It's a good couch, except the foam cushions were worn out. So I called during all the shutdown madness to see when the foam guy will reopen. He tells me I'm not shut down and bring the old ones to get a quote. He never shut down, was still just as busy as normal, only required me to wear a mask. 4 hours later, the couch is like new. Here in NC, Commie Cooper is getting sued left and right. He lost to the churches, and now the bars and gyms are suing. We might not have the convention now in Charlotte. I hope he loses in November. Foam shields high. All right, Richard. Thanks, man. Cool story. There we go. All right, we got Kyle up. Buck, I agree with your guest David's opinion on voter requirements. I'm of the Starship Troopers mindset. Service to the country earns you the right to vote because serving means you have a stake in society. Heinlein wrote, when you vote, you're exercising political authority, you're using force. And force, my friends, is violence, the supreme authority from which all other authorities are derived. Imagine if we gave the same scrutiny to voting as we do the ability to purchase a firearm. Kyle, eloquent and perhaps a bit radical in your analysis, but thank you very much for writing in, man. And I also think, that at least making people show up, I think that's very reasonable. Show up to have to vote and not just press a button on your smartphone like, I vote. I don't think that's, you do have people that I believe want more. There are people that will talk about direct democracy where we would all just vote on, a whole range of issues from our phones, right? The governor could say, hey, should we do this thing? How should we spend this money? And everyone gets to vote on their phones. That turns into mobocracy very quickly. Nick, although I know there are referendums and there are things like this that happen, but nonetheless. Nick, hey Buck, big fan from the original Saturday Squad, OSS. Just wanted to float something to see what you think. Is it possible that Biden's No Malarkey tour was just a cover story for his slippage? He seems to have gotten pretty grumpy since then. Maybe someone saw it coming? Producer Mark, what do you think Nick is saying here?
I think slippage, I think he's talking about mentally.
Interesting. But Nick, I don't, you think that somebody who thinks they're slipping would say the No Malarkey tour? I don't see how that's a cover for it. I don't know, Nick, I appreciate you writing, and I don't really see it, but thank you. Mika, Buck, forget Malta. When are we getting the late night salty producer Mark and Buck drinking booze podcast? Raise your glass and shields high. Mika, I don't know. That'd be kind of fun. I don't know. You put a couple of drinks, producer Mark. We're gonna have to take out the bleep button a lot, though.
I think that's the point. They don't they want us to do this on YouTube or something.
Yeah, without bleeps. I don't know, it'd be kind of fun, you know? Be like, producer Mark, what's the worst move that the New York football Giants have ever made? It's like, hit the deck, here it comes.
No, the Giants wouldn't do it. The Mets or the Rangers, you'd get me ranting.
Yeah, there you go. I did see there was a funny Tom Brady exchange with, did you see this one with Eli Manning back when I used to watch football? I saw Eli beat Tom Brady twice in the Super Bowl. Greatest sporting events I've ever watched both times. And Brady made some Twitter comment to Eli about, because he had just joined Twitter, you know, only showing up in the fourth quarter. Classic Eli. It was pretty funny, actually.
Yeah, that is funny, but he shows up in the fourth quarter to beat Tom Brady, so.
Indeed.
I will always say Eli Manning, the most average quarterback of all time. Except for 2 quarters of his life.
I mean, you only need 2 big wins to be a legend. This is the
That's
truth.
why he's most likely a Hall of Famer off of 2 games, or I'll give him 8 games, the whole playoffs both years.
Yeah, well, people forget this. I mean, Churchill, for example, Winston Churchill, the British Prime Minister, you all know Churchill, was a very prolific writer and has all these sayings attributed to him, and it has this whole character. He was wrong about a lot of stuff. People forget this now, but he was right about the single most important thing at the single most important time, probably of the 20th century, which was the evils of Nazism and the need to. So yeah, this is what I'm saying. You have one huge win, and that's what you're known for. You know.
Hey,
So,
according to Wayne Gretzky and Michael Scott, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
there you go. True story. Greg, Buck, just wanted to say something cool for roll call because I get way too riled up from listening to you daily. Mel Gibson is the greatest actor of all time, and Braveheart is the greatest movie of all time, and also the greatest soundtrack of all time. Thanks. I mean, that's a lot of greatest of all. That's a lot of GOAT, a lot of greatest of all time. Braveheart is my favorite movie to this day. It just is my favorite movie. I can't say that Mel Gibson's my favorite actor. He was great in a bunch of things. But I wouldn't say he's my favorite. Actually, I don't know. Producer Mark, do you have a favorite all-time actor?
I don't know how you even say that there is a greatest actor of all time. Like, can you really name one? Or there's so many great movies.
Maybe a better
TV
way to put it
shows.
would be your all-time favorite.
I don't even think I could say that. I don't know.
I don't think one comes. I think a lot of people would probably start saying things like Tom Hanks. A lot of people would say. For some people, maybe Harrison Ford. If you're looking for male actors, there's male actors, female
I think
actors.
Denzel comes up a lot.
I was going to say Denzel would come up for a lot of folks. Some people, if you're really into like the most sort of pure acting method and everything else, would say Daniel Day-Lewis. These are some of the great male. And then everyone always says Meryl Streep on the female side. I don't know. I'm not as impressed as everybody else. But
I'd put Steve Carell up there.
greatest all-time actor?
I'd put him up there as just most versatile. He could do comedy, he can do drama, and he always makes you laugh or he makes you cry.
I mean, The Office is one of the greatest comedic collaborations of all time.
Apparently,
So,
Space Force dropped today. I'm going to have to watch that after the show.
wait, is he in that?
Yeah, I told you it's the show that with the creator of The Office and him teamed up again.
Where
It's on
can I watch
Netflix.
this? Oh my gosh! Sign me up. I thank you for the reminder, producer Mark. That's what I'm gonna spend my weekend doing. That and getting the Snow Princess to make me some cookies. She makes the best cookies on planet Earth. I'm telling you, it's amazing. I'll bring you some when the quarantine ends.
Please do.
They really are the best. She makes them gluten full instead of gluten free for other people. So, Dennis, since I didn't hear you mention watching the Ulysses Grant documentary, which just recently aired on the History Channel, and knowing your interest in history, I thought it would be worth letting you know I found it very well done and worth viewing. Grant is one that is seemingly overlooked in our country, yet it could be argued played a major role in our country's history. Thanks, as always, for the great content you put into each show and allowing your listeners, viewers, a chance to opine. Shields High asks low. My man Dennis, I like it. Shields High asks low, indeed. And then one more. Andrew, sanctimonious mask shamers are annoying and irritating, but I've been thinking about a counterstrike. What if people in great numbers began wearing MAGA Trump Pence 2020 masks everywhere in public? Would this suddenly change the mask love that zealous libs have? I would wear one. Thanks. And Shields High. I think I brought this up. I might have said this maybe I don't know. I think I said this last night on one of my shows. I said it somewhere. But yeah, I if you started wearing a MAGA hat in New York City or a MAGA mask in New York City, people would no longer give you credit for being a person of science. Who cares about people? You're terrible. You like Trump. Everybody have a great weekend. Please do pass the buck. Share on YouTube my interview with President Trump. You check it out on youtube.com/Buck Sexton. Pass the podcast, pass the buck. Talk to you Monday. Shields high.